The Galactic Court orbited a dying red star. Its golden spires glowed faintly, reflecting the light of a sun that had seen too many wars. The chamber inside was the size of a city, filled with alien delegates from every corner of the galaxy. Hundreds of species, each seated in curved rows around a circular platform. At the center stood a single man in a black suit. A human. No one had seen a human in person for decades. To the galaxy, they were strange, unpredictable beings, quiet for too long, dangerous when provoked. But today one stood alone before the entire council. He carried no weapon, wore no armor, and spoke no words. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The Chancellor of the Vorn Empire, a tall creature of iron-blue skin and molten eyes, slammed his staff on the floor. The echo silenced every voice. "Human Envoy," he said with a sneer. "You stand before the Galactic Court to answer for your species' crimes." The human looked up slowly. His hair was silver, his face calm, almost bored. "Crimes?" he said softly. "That's an interesting word for the things you've done." Gasps spread across the chamber. The Chancellor's eyes burned brighter. "You dare accuse the Council? Your people interfered in a conflict forbidden by our laws. You will explain yourselves." The man didn't blink. "We tried to save them," he said. "You destroyed them." The Chancellor's tone grew sharper. "You come here without rank, without power, without a fleet at your back. You think Earth's sympathy matters here?" The man adjusted his cufflinks, his movements precise, deliberate. "I think," he said, "you've already decided what happens next." The lights flickered for a moment. A faint hum passed through the floor, so subtle most didn't notice. But the human did. He tilted his head slightly, listening, as if someone somewhere had whispered a signal only he could hear. Then he smiled. Just a little, the Chancellor signaled his guards. "Arrest him." Armored soldiers moved in from every side, heavy footsteps shaking the marble floor. Energy rifles charged, glowing a harsh blue. The man didn't move. He simply looked at the nearest guard, and for a brief second the guard froze. A sharp chill ran through the air. The lights dimmed again, and the great holographic banners of the Council flickered, distorting. Outside, in the darkness of space, something enormous shifted. At first no one noticed. The orbital sensors picked up nothing. No warp trail, no signal, nothing measurable. But the shadow grew, a dark shape eclipsing the dying red star. Inside the chamber, one of the aides shouted, "We're losing contact with the outer ring stations." The Chancellor frowned. "What?" "The sensors are blind, sir. Something is blocking every scan." Every delegate turned toward the massive window behind the chamber throne. Beyond the glass, the stars were gone. Only blackness remained. And within that darkness, faint lights began to appear, forming outlines. The shape wasn't a fleet. It was one ship. But it was vast, larger than any station, larger than anything they had seen. Its hull shimmered like polished obsidian, absorbing light. No sound, no message, no signature. It simply existed, silent and terrifying. The chamber filled with panic. "Identify that vessel," shouted a technician. "I can't," another screamed. "It's not on any record." The human finally looked up at the view. "You're wondering what it is," he said quietly. "We call her the Executor." The Chancellor slammed his staff again. "This is treason." "You brought a warship here?" The man didn't respond. His gaze stayed on the ship. "I didn't bring it," he said. "It came on its own." At that moment, the entire chamber trembled. Shields flickered. Every communicator went silent. A pulse, invisible but powerful, rolled through the station. Lights shattered. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Delegates screamed as gravity shifted for a second, then stabilized. When the lights returned, the human was standing at the same spot, calm as before. His voice was quiet, but cut through the chaos like a blade. "You called me here to answer for humanity," he said. "Now you have your answer." The Chancellor roared. "You threaten the court?" The man's eyes met his. "No, I'm warning it." The council guards aimed their rifles, but before they could fire, every weapon went offline. Energy cells drained to zero. Even the emergency lights dimmed again. The man straightened his tie and said softly, "Humanity doesn't send diplomats to threats. We send reminders." The ship outside shifted slightly, aligning its prow toward the station. The air hummed with pressure. The alien delegates stared in silent horror. "Deactivate that thing," shouted someone. "You can't," the human said. "It doesn't take orders anymore." The Chancellor stumbled back. What do you mean? The man turned toward the massive doors of the court. It's not a weapon, he said. It's a memory. He walked slowly toward the exit. Behind him, holographic panels flickered again, showing only one word written across every display: Executor. As the doors closed, his final words echoed through the golden hall, calm, emotionless, and final. You challenged Earth's envoy, he said. Now face what that means. The chamber went silent. The dying star outside dimmed behind the massive black silhouette of the Terran ship. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Court felt fear. The chamber's golden doors sealed behind the human envoy with a heavy echo that rolled through the vast halls. Inside, chaos erupted. Delegates screamed orders, lights flickered, and the great starfield windows still showed the black shape outside. Silent, massive, unmoving. It hung there like a god's shadow swallowing starlight. Outside, fleets scrambled. Dozens of alien cruisers surrounded the station, weapons armed, broadcasting desperate hails. None were answered. Their radar and scanners still read nothing. To their systems, the ship didn't exist. But their eyes told them otherwise. The human walked calmly down the glass corridor that overlooked the void. His reflection floated over the endless black, his steps steady, his breathing slow. He touched a small earpiece hidden beneath his collar. They reacted faster than expected, he said softly. A voice replied in his ear, quiet, distant, and cold. And the message? He stopped near the window, watching the alien fleets maneuver nervously. Delivered, he said. They think I'm here alone. You are never alone, the voice said. He smiled faintly. I know. Back inside the council chamber, the Vorn Chancellor roared orders at his staff. Get that ship off our grid. Contact every fleet. Tell them to engage. One of the aides shook violently. But, sir, it's not responding to any form of scan or signal. It's not made of matter, we know. The Chancellor slammed his fist on the table. I don't care what it's made of. Destroy it! Outside, a dozen cruisers moved forward, engines flaring. Energy beams lit the darkness. Each one hit the black ship, only to vanish without effect. The beams curved slightly, like light bent around something unseen. Then, one by one, the attacking ships froze. Power systems died. Engines flickered out. Their lights went cold. In the observation corridor, the human watched silently as the cruisers drifted powerless. His expression didn't change. They never listen, he whispered. The ship outside pulsed once, faintly. Space rippled around it, distorting everything nearby. To the naked eye, it looked like a deep breath, a living thing exhaling through the fabric of reality itself. Down below, the Council's panic reached its peak. All systems are down, shouted one technician. Our fleet's gone dark. Dark how? The Chancellor demanded. They're not destroyed. Just gone. Gone. Yes, sir. Their signals vanished completely. It's like they were erased from existence. The Chancellor's molten eyes widened. This is impossible, one of the older delegates whispered in terror. It's not impossible. It's human. The Chancellor turned sharply. What did you say? The old alien trembled. I was there, at the Ashara front 50 years ago. We fought them once. They called it a peacekeeping act. They said they were helping. But when their ships appeared, worlds vanished. We never saw their dead. We never saw wreckage. Just silence. The Chancellor stared in disbelief. That was myth. The old alien shook his head. No, that was a warning. The corridor lights dimmed again as the human entered the docking bay. His steps echoed in the hollow silence. A single shuttle waited for him. A small silver vessel marked only with an old Terran insignia. He stopped before boarding and looked back at the glowing station behind him. In that moment, his calm voice filled the ship's comms, broadcasted to every channel across the system. To the Galactic Court, he said, humanity sends this reminder. Peace is a privilege earned by respect. You broke that respect. The Chancellor slammed a button on his desk. Cut him off. But they couldn't. His voice continued unstoppable, clear as thunder. Earth remembers every treaty, every betrayal, every insult. We stayed silent because you called us violent. But silence doesn't mean weakness. It means patience. Outside, the massive Terran warship moved at last, not with engines or thrusters, but with a gravity wave that rippled through the system. The dying red star flickered, its light bending around the vessel. Then, in one motion, it reappeared closer, right above the Council station. Panic swept the fleets. "It's moving without propulsion," screamed a pilot. "It's folding local gravity," another voice replied. "That's impossible." "Everything they do is impossible," said a third, trembling. The ship aligned directly with the station. Its hull began to glow faintly, lines of soft golden light forming patterns across its surface like veins of living energy. The delegates stared at it through the windows, unable to look away. "What is it doing?" whispered one. The old alien answered quietly, "It's deciding." Inside his shuttle, the human sat down, fastening his restraint straps. "They still think this is a threat," he murmured. The voice in his ear replied, "It is not a threat. It's judgment." He looked out the cockpit window one last time. The station was beautiful, an ancient creation of 1,000 species working together. He almost pitied them. "They could have learned," he said softly. The Terran warship's golden lights flared once, then dimmed. Every system in the Court's orbit went dark. No explosions, no destruction, just silence, all energy, gone. Then the stars returned. The ship had vanished. Inside the chamber, emergency lights flickered back on. Delegates gasped for air as if waking from a nightmare. The Chancellor looked around wildly. "Where did it go?" One technician whispered, "It didn't go anywhere. It's everywhere." Then the comm screen in front of the Chancellor lit up. The human's face appeared again, calm and expressionless. "This is how peace begins," he said quietly, "with understanding." The screen went black. Far away in the depths of space, the executor drifted silently, invisible again. On board, its AI whispered to the human envoy, "Shall we return home?" He looked into the stars. "Not yet," he said. "They still need to remember." And in that vast silence, a new fear spread across the galaxy, the quiet understanding that humanity's peace was not weakness. It was warning disguised as mercy. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. Every world, every outpost, every ship in range of the Galactic Court saw the blackout. For 8 minutes, every system went dark, no power, no gravity, no communication, and then it returned as if nothing had happened. But the silence that followed was louder than any weapon ever built. The Council issued orders for an emergency investigation. Fleets from 5 empires surrounded the system, scanning endlessly for the Terran ship. They found nothing. No trace of radiation, no debris, no signal. It was as if the executor had never existed. In a quiet corner of space, hidden beyond any known route, the human envoy sat in his small shuttle. The ship floated silently in the void, waiting. The stars outside shimmered faintly, bending slightly around something massive and unseen. "They are terrified," said a voice over the comms, smooth and cold. "They should be," he replied, eyes fixed on the faint outline of the Terran warship cloaked in the dark. "Fear keeps the peace better than words," the voice hesitated. "And yet fear also breeds revenge," he exhaled slowly. "Then they'll learn what that costs." Back in the court system, the Chancellor of the Vorn Empire stood before the emergency assembly. His eyes burned brighter than before. "This is war," he shouted. "Humanity has violated every treaty we built. They sent that thing here." The hall erupted into shouts. Some demanded retaliation, others wanted negotiation. A few, the older ones, simply sat in silence, remembering. One delegate, the slender Irini representative, spoke softly. "You cannot fight ghosts, Chancellor. They sent a man, not an army." The Chancellor slammed his hand on the table. "That was an army. You saw what one human ship did. It erased fleets." The Irini looked down. "Then maybe you should ask yourself why it didn't erase us." The room fell silent. Across the galaxy, on Earth deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a room full of quiet faces watched a holographic projection of the same event. Generals, scientists, and diplomats, all wearing the same insignia, a single silver circle. The human envoy's image flickered on the display. "Mission concluded," he said. A general leaned forward. "Casualties?" "None," he replied. "They fired first." The executor responded as programmed. "The station remains intact. Message delivered." A woman at the far end of the table spoke for the first time. "And their fleets?" "Gone," he said. "No destruction, no death. Just silence." The room stayed quiet. The general nodded. "You did well, Commander. Earth remains unseen." The envoy looked away from the camera, his eyes distant. "They still think I'm just a diplomat," he murmured. The general smiled faintly. That's the point. Meanwhile, on the alien side, the Council's panic deepened. Every empire deployed scouts and probes, desperate to find a trace of the Executor. Weeks passed. They found nothing. But strange reports began to appear, ships vanishing on the edges of space. Entire colonies going dark, only to return days later, claiming they saw a black star pass overhead. Some called it a myth, others called it a warning. At the same time, messages began to appear across the galactic network, encrypted transmissions from unknown sources. Each one contained a single line: "Do not challenge the humans again." In his shuttle, drifting in the silent dark, the Envoy received the same transmission. He smiled slightly. "They're spreading the message for us now," he said. The AI's voice replied, "Then the operation is successful." "Not yet," the Envoy whispered. "They'll come looking. They always do." A faint vibration passed through the ship. The black warship nearby began to move again, its outline dissolving into the dark. The Envoy stood by the viewport, watching as it vanished like smoke into nothing. "You think they'll ever understand?" the AI asked. "Eventually," he said, "but understanding usually comes after fear." Back in the court, the Chancellor sat alone in his office, staring at the stars. He remembered how the human's calm voice had sounded, gentle, almost sorrowful. "We send reminders," the Envoy had said. He shivered. "Reminders of what?" he whispered. Then, as if in answer, his console blinked. A small holographic message appeared. No encryption, no traceable source. Just a simple message written in Terran script. This was Mercy. The Chancellor's hands trembled. He turned off the screen, but the words stayed burned in his mind. Elsewhere, on a mining colony near the galactic rim, workers reported seeing a dark shape in the sky, enormous and silent. It hovered for only a few minutes, then vanished into the stars. Every system on the colony went dark for exactly 60 seconds. When power returned, the colony's AI logged a new message in its core memory. "The Envoy is watching." Rumors spread faster than light. The Executor became legend, a ghost ship, a symbol of Earth's unseen power. But the truth was simpler. It wasn't a weapon. It was a promise. And deep in the void, the human Envoy closed his eyes as his ship drifted beside the invisible Colossus. "They think we want war," he murmured. "What do we want?" the AI asked. He smiled faintly. "We want them to remember why there isn't one." The stars outside shifted. The Executor faded into the black, leaving behind only silence. And across 1,000 worlds, every race that had once laughed at humanity now felt something new. Not hatred, not defiance. Just fear. The blackout's echo lingered for months. Every species whispered about the human Envoy, the man in the suit who walked into the court and left entire fleets paralyzed. Yet no one truly understood what had happened. The Galactic Council demanded unity, but the cracks between the empires began to widen. In the high orbit of Vorn Prime, a secret meeting was held. Leaders from 6 major species gathered behind closed doors. The Chancellor of the Vorn Empire presided, his molten eyes dimmed with sleepless rage. "We cannot allow this myth to grow," he hissed. "If they think humanity is untouchable, every world will fear them more than they fear us." The Arini ambassador spoke softly. "Maybe fear is earned, Chancellor. Maybe they are beyond what we understand." The Chancellor turned sharply toward her. "No species is beyond control, not even the Terrans." Across the galaxy, the human Envoy listened through hidden transmissions. His shuttle drifted near the dark rim of space, hidden inside the shadow of the Executor. The ship slept, silent, immense, and alive in some quiet way. Its surface reflected no light, only the faint shimmer of distant stars bending around it. 6 of them meet in secret, the AI reported. "They plan retaliation." He nodded slowly. "Expected. Fear always turns to anger before understanding." "What will you do?" the AI asked. "Nothing," he replied. "Not yet." In the council chamber, the alien leaders debated strategies, building fleets, deploying drones, spreading propaganda. They called humanity rogue, unstable, and unfit for diplomacy. But beneath their anger was something they could not erase: the memory of that ship and the silence it left behind. Younger delegate from the smaller, tall species interrupted the shouting. "If they wanted war," he said, trembling, "we'd already be dead." The room went silent. The Chancellor leaned forward. "And if they want power, then they already have it," the Tall answered. For the first time, no one argued. Meanwhile, far from any known star, the Envoy stepped out of his shuttle and onto a platform within the Executor. The walls glowed faintly with blue light, living metal shifting like water. He walked through a corridor that seemed to hum with memory. The ship was old, older than most civilizations now alive. It was built not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Every part of it carried the weight of 1,000 lost battles. He placed his hand on the wall. "They're dividing," he murmured. The AI's voice surrounded him like a whisper. "You knew they would." "Yes. But the divide grows faster than I hoped." On the far side of the galaxy, chaos spread quietly. Worlds began to question the Council's rule. "If they can't protect us from one human," whispered a traitor, "what good are they?" Pirates started claiming they had Terran protection. Smugglers spread fake transmissions pretending to speak for Earth. Fear had become a weapon, one humanity never meant to use. The Chancellor watched the riots unfold from his command ship. "They're using myth as power," he snarled. "We'll burn their myth." He gestured to his generals. "Assemble the fleets. Track the signal from that envoy. Bring me his head," but every attempt failed. Probes vanished. Scouts returned insane. One even claimed he saw his own ship twice before it disappeared. "Space folded around us," the pilot cried, trembling. "It's like the stars moved out of fear." The Chancellor didn't believe him. He couldn't afford to. Back within the Executor, the Envoy stood before a massive viewing chamber, an open window of nothing but darkness. In the center floated a small blue sphere, Earth. Faint, distant, beautiful. He watched it quietly. "They're preparing for war," the AI said. "They've always been preparing," he answered. "Every empire believes the galaxy is a cage they built. They don't realize humanity was never inside it." He walked to the console. "Begin transmission," he said. A low hum filled the air. Across the galaxy, encrypted frequencies began to flicker, messages only specific receivers could understand. The human envoy's voice spread through the void, calm and clear. "Galactic Council," he said, "you have called us dangerous." "You are correct. But danger isn't always violence. Sometimes it's knowledge. You built your empire on fear. We built ours on memory. You wanted to remind the galaxy of your power. We came to remind you of consequence." His words echoed across systems before fading into static. At that exact moment, every sensor across the galactic rim detected a shift, a faint gravitational anomaly, vast and cold. Not destruction, not invasion, just a shadow passing across the stars, large enough to block constellations. The Executor was moving again. In the council chamber, alarms screamed. "It's here!" shouted a voice. "It's reappeared." The Chancellor stood, gripping the railing. "Then let it come," he growled. "Let humanity face us openly." But when they turned the sensors toward the shadow, there was no ship, only reflection. The Executor had projected itself across the system's gravity field, a silent illusion of power. It wasn't an attack, it was a message. The shadow formed a symbol, a circle of light around darkness, the same symbol engraved on the envoy's suit, and then it vanished. The alien leaders stared at the fading light in silence. Some felt anger, others awe, but for the first time the Chancellor felt something he couldn't describe. Not fear, not hate, something older, respect. In the void, the envoy lowered his hand from the console. "They will choose soon," he whispered. "Between peace and pride?" The AI asked. He nodded. "And whichever they choose, the galaxy will never be the same again." The stars drifted quietly around the Executor as it disappeared back into the folds of deep space, leaving behind a galaxy divided, half in denial, half in dread, and one man in a suit who carried humanity's most dangerous weapon. Patience. The galaxy was changing. Borders that had stood for centuries began to blur. Trade routes were abandoned, alliances shaken, and trust turned into whispers of fear. Every world that had once looked to the Galactic Court for guidance now watched the stars, waiting for the shadow of the Executor to return. In the heart of this growing unease, the Vorn Empire took action. Their fleets, the largest in the known galaxy, moved through systems under the banner of restoration. They promised order. But deep down, every soldier knew they were hunting one man, the human envoy. On a silent moon near the edge of the Arini cluster, he stood outside his shuttle, the cold wind carrying dust across silver plains. Above him, the night sky burned with 1,000 stars, each one a secret. He had been waiting, watching, listening to what the galaxy whispered about him. "They've sent entire armadas after you," said the AI through the comms. "They've declared humanity a hostile civilization." He smiled faintly. "They always do that before they understand us. Would you like the executor to intervene?" "Not yet. Fear has to grow before truth can be seen." He turned toward the horizon where the faint shimmer of ships appeared. Blue thrusters, tight formation, Vorn warships. They were coming fast. He stood still, hands in his pockets, as the first dropships descended in a storm of dust and fire. When the smoke cleared, hundreds of armored soldiers surrounded him. Their weapons glowed white-hot. The Vorn commander stepped forward, his armor reflecting the red light of the distant sun. "Human Envoy," he barked, "by order of the Galactic Court, you are under arrest for acts of intimidation, violation of council law, and unauthorized use of weapons of mass terror." The human looked at him calmly. "You misunderstand," he said softly. "I don't use weapons of mass terror," the commander laughed. "No? Then what do you call that shadow you unleashed?" The human tilted his head. "A reminder." The commander raised his weapon. "Your words won't save you." The human's expression didn't change. "Neither will yours." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the sky darkened. Not from clouds, but from something blocking the light. The soldiers turned their eyes upward and froze. The executor was above them, silent, immense. Its black hull stretched from horizon to horizon, blocking the stars. No engines, no sound, just a silent wall of living metal, pulsing faintly like the heart of something ancient. The commander stumbled backward. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did it find you?" The human looked up. "It always finds me. It listens." The ground vibrated with a low hum like thunder from another dimension. The soldiers fell to their knees as their weapons powered down, one by one. The air shimmered with faint light, golden lines tracing symbols across the sky. Then in the silence, the human spoke again. "You wanted to arrest humanity," he said softly. "Now you stand before what you feared to understand." The executor's lights pulsed once. Every soldier's helmet displayed the same message in Terran script. "Stand down." Some ran. Some dropped their weapons. A few fired, beams of energy that vanished before touching the man. The human sighed quietly. "You don't learn." A single ripple spread from the executor, silent and invisible. The ships in orbit went dark. The soldiers froze mid-motion. Their systems rebooted, their armor shutting down, their comms filled with static. And then nothing. Only silence and the sound of wind sweeping the dust. The human turned to the commander, who knelt trembling. "Tell your chancellor this," he said. "The next time the court calls for judgment, Earth will answer." But not with words. He began to walk back toward his shuttle. The commander looked up. "What are you?" he whispered. The envoy paused. "A diplomat," he said, "on his final mission." The executor faded from the sky like mist under sunlight. The stars returned, but the silence remained. Hours later, the Vorn fleet limped back to their system, their data corrupted, their crews shaken. The chancellor listened as the commander gave his report. "He didn't kill us," the commander said. "He could have, but he didn't. It was like he wanted us to see." "See what?" the chancellor asked coldly. The commander's eyes were hollow. "What mercy feels like." The chancellor dismissed him, pacing the chamber alone. He couldn't understand it. Why humanity with such power didn't conquer. Why they kept showing restraint. It terrified him more than destruction ever could. Meanwhile, on Earth, deep beneath the Pacific, the envoy stood again before the Terran command. Holograms of stars and council systems floated around him. "The court is breaking apart," he said. "Half their fleets no longer answer to the chancellor. The rest are afraid to move." A general leaned forward. "Then the time is coming," the envoy nodded. "They'll unite again, but not against us. Against each other. And when they do, then," he said softly, "we remind them again." He walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing against the metal floor. Outside, through the transparent dome above the ocean base, the stars shimmered faintly. Somewhere out there, the executor drifted like a shadow of judgment, silent and patient. The envoy paused, looking up at the faint reflection of his own face in the glass. "One day," he murmured, "they'll stop calling us monsters. And what will they call you then?" The AI asked through his earpiece. He smiled faintly. "History." The lights of Earth reflected in his eyes, calm, bright, unyielding. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, echoing through the ocean depths like the pulse of something far greater. And above it all, hidden beyond time and silence, humanity's shadow watched the galaxy with quiet purpose, waiting, because the next time the galaxy forgot who they were, it wouldn't be a reminder, it would be reckoning. The galaxy stood on the edge of silence. The Vorn fleets had retreated, their engines crippled, their pride shattered. The Galactic Court was fractured beyond repair, its once golden halls empty, its banners torn down by the very species that once swore loyalty to it. Fear had replaced law, and whispers of the human envoy moved faster than light. On a lonely observation deck above Earth, the envoy stood alone. Below him, the blue planet glowed like a jewel in the darkness. Clouds drifted slowly over the oceans, calm and innocent, hiding the power sleeping beneath. The executor waited in the shadows beyond Luna's orbit, motionless and unseen, its dark hull faintly reflecting sunlight like a ghost. "You've done it," said the AI softly in his ear. "The Council is no more. Their fleets are broken, their unity gone." The envoy didn't respond immediately. He watched lightning flash over a distant storm on Earth's surface. "They think it's over," he said quietly. "But this isn't an ending. It's the beginning of memory. Then what remains?" asked the AI. "Understanding," he said, "and consequence." Far away across the stars, the Chancellor of the Vorn Empire addressed what remained of the Council. His once commanding voice was hollow. "Humanity has humiliated us," he said, his molten eyes dim. "But they have also spared us. We stand alive because they allowed it. That is not mercy. That is power." The delegates murmured uneasily. The Irene ambassador rose. "Perhaps it is neither. Perhaps it is warning." The Chancellor slammed his staff down, cracks splitting the marble beneath his feet. "I will not live in a galaxy ruled by fear." "Then you will not live long," she whispered. Back on Earth, the envoy descended through the clouds in a sleek shuttle. The Pacific base shimmered beneath the water, lights glowing like constellations. When he entered the command hall, every officer stood in silence. They had all seen the footage, the court's collapse, the fleet's retreat, the moment the executor blotted out a sun. The Prime Director stepped forward. "The galaxy knows your name," she said. "They call you Death in a Suit." He gave a small smile. "I never liked that name." "Then what should they call you?" "Human," he said. There was no applause, no celebration. Humanity didn't cheer for dominance. They prepared for peace, quietly, efficiently, as they always did. Beneath the oceans, shipyards awoke. Silent drones repaired, refined, rebuilt. Humanity wasn't mobilizing for conquest. They were preparing for the inevitable when someone, somewhere, would forget again. Weeks passed. Reports began to spread. Entire worlds restoring contact with Earth, asking for treaties, trade, peace. Others still hid, afraid to even mention humanity. And then, one night, a message arrived from the far edge of the galaxy. It wasn't from the Council. It wasn't from any empire. It came from a single planet, one that had once been under Vorn control. The transmission was simple. "We saw your ship. We will never raise arms against your kind. But tell us, human, what are you?" The envoy read the message in silence. Then he looked up at the stars. "We're what happens," he whispered, "when you push too far for too long." The AI spoke again. "Would you like to reply?" He nodded. "Send this. We seek no war. But never mistake our silence for absence." The message was sent. Far beyond Earth, the executor stirred once more. Its engines flared briefly, bending light around it before fading again. Every listening post across the rim detected the anomaly, recorded it, feared it, and then it was gone. The legend grew. On the ruined council world, the Chancellor stared at the void where the ship had once appeared. "They could rule everything," he muttered, "and yet they don't." The old Irene ambassador, frail but wise, answered softly, "That's why they do." The galaxy entered an age of quiet diplomacy. Treaties were rewritten with care. Fleets were disarmed. For the first time in generations, peace lasted, not because the Council demanded it, but because humanity was watching. The envoy stood again at the window of his orbital residence, hands clasped behind his back. "They will test us again," he said. "They always do," replied the AI. He nodded slowly. "Then we'll remind them again. Not with fire, not with war, just with presence." He looked toward the stars, and his reflection glimmered faintly in the glass. Calm, patient, eternal. Far away, the executor drifted quietly through the dark, unseen, unheard. To some it was a ghost, to others a god. But to humanity it was something simpler, a promise that peace once given would never again be taken lightly. And somewhere deep within that ancient ship, a single phrase pulsed across its core systems, glowing in Terran script. "We do not seek fear. We bring remembrance." The envoy closed his eyes as Earth's sunrise lit the horizon, flooding space with gold. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was silent, not out of terror but respect. Humanity had become legend, and legends, unlike empires, never fade. All 6 parts are now complete. Would you like me to make 3 hyper-realistic image prompts? Plus 1 cinematic video prompt for this final story. The Galactic Court challenged the human envoy. He answered like death itself, HFY sci-fi epic. These will perfectly match your HFY channel style. Bright daylight tone, golden blue palette, cinematic composition, and human vs. galaxy visuals.